So today is ironically Joseph Smith's birthday. I'm going to just do a very short, quick follow-up video to the video I just did about the daguerreotype of Joseph Smith, the case of the wedding ring. And so again, I'm just going to get more specific about William B. McCarl's theory and what I think about his theory, basically. So it was asked of me by an academic if I thought that my picture was this daguerreotype right here. That if you read this article, you think is the basis of that painting, is the basis of Carter's picture. So this is the painting he has right there that he thinks was done by William Major. And then this is Carter's thing. So, I mean, of course, I don't think William Major did that. I don't think it was based on a daguerreotype. I think he sustained the characteristic likeness of his father by looking at the daguerreotype. But there's all the sources in this same article. If you read it, they're all online. A lot of them are just, the books are there. They scan the whole book. It's from 1885. It's very clear that the painting was from life, according to Joseph Smith III and Junius F. Wells, so if you believe both of them are not liars. And then Dan Weggeland, did he look at the daguerreotype? So it sounds like it. If you put a bunch of ellipses and quote from Junius F. Wells, if you read the whole thing, it's very specific that they had an engraving done of this drawing that they state this drawing was based on a daguerreotype of the painting. And so Junius F. Wells is talking about this. And so a lot of Utah historians are just like, oh, well, Joseph Smith, and but then they go a lot farther to think that Joseph Smith III was really talking about these daguerreotypes of the painting, and because he did take a photo of the painting. And then even if you go to Library of Congress, they say the Carter and Library of Congress picture, which I'm not going to go into this here, but these are just the pictures. And so that's why they think there isn't a daguerreotype of Joseph Smith. Half of the historians at the Church History Center, and then half of them do think that it wasn't talking about this. They think there is somewhere, some daguerreotype of Joseph Smith. That yes, there were daguerreotypes and photos of the painting. And then my whole theory is just sort of started seeing Emma Smith's daguerreotype that is oxidized. As this is my picture, edited. I flipped the orientation around and darkened it as dark as Emma Smith's picture. And so again, like I say in the video, Joseph Smith III had Julia Murdoch Smith's family photo album with them. He would have looked at it. He was giving her pictures. They were so close. Joseph Smith III was very close in age to Julia Murdoch Smith, his adopted older sister. Very close in age. He would have known because they had Emma Smith's 1845 daguerreotype that copied very well in Julia Murdoch Smith's photo album in the 1860s. By 1879, I think he inherited the daguerreotype. I think someone else got the cartridge of Zete maybe right after it was copied. I don't know what happened. It's just my theory that the reason he just took daguerreotypes of paintings because if the daguerreotype then looks like this after 10 years since they took the glass off and in the 1860s, by 1879, it might have gotten this dark. But I don't know. It is possible that Carter wasn't a liar. Of course, I'm basically saying I think he is, but I don't know. I really can't say for sure if Carter did or didn't really see the daguerreotype of Joseph Smith, because he says he did. He says right here on the bottom, copied from the original daguerreotype, taken in 1843. And Joseph Smith III says that year, so it does sound like he says the same thing as Joseph Smith III in 1910. Is it possible? Do I see similarities between this and my image, especially when it's been flipped around? I see some similarities. It looks quite similar. And then Dan Weggeland, that is debunked from this whole theory when you read Junius F. Wells, who states, that our engraving. So I'm going to pull up in Dan Weggeland's drawing here. Here's Dan Weggeland's drawing, but in 1885 they state that Dan was looking at the daguerreotype of the painting. So they weren't stupid. There were people in Utah that knew, oh, here's a daguerreotype of the painting. But there were some people that were gullible. And I think Carter just wanted to make money of his photos of the painting, and they edited it so it wouldn't look exactly like the painting. That's my theory, but it is possible, but it seems very clear that Dan Weggeland was just looking at the daguerreotype of the painting, and it does really match the RLDS painting. I mean, both of these, these are all the same based on looking at the painting that was done from life. There was no daguerreotypist there. But, if you asked me 2 years ago what I thought, I read all the blogs and believed this theory by William B. McCarl, and I thought, oh, this was the daguerreotype, and then this was done earlier, and then later, and I didn't know how early. If you watch one of my really old videos, I really did not know when photography was invented, so I probably said the 20s, 1820s. I've just deleted so many videos over the years, so if you've really followed me since like May 2017, I didn't know that much about the history of photography, but I know a lot more now. So, I just think my mind has been open that possibly this really was the daguerreotype. And then after talking to Godwin Weaver in March, I'm like, okay, it is copied from a daguerreotype. And he says that the reason, I'm like, well, how could my picture be in the right orientation and match the death mask? Because I say in my last video, he said either a reversing prism, which they used, and Lucian Foster did do a lot of like landscape photos. And so if they were preemptively assuming to do that, to take photos of the Nauvoo temple in the right orientation, he would need a reversing prism, or he knew he would take a daguerreotype of a daguerreotype, which is another theory, that this possibly was the original daguerreotype. They took another daguerreotype of it, and then that was copied on the carte de visite, and then it was in the correct perspective. So anyway, so I'm just showing you. This is ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. But these are all the pictures that William B. McCarl talks about. But again, his whole theory that suddenly all three of these pictures, these are all based on the daguerreotype, really comes from his theory about the ring. And so that's why I did that whole long video talking about that. But when you really look at all three of these pictures, they're all exactly the same and match the painting. So, but it is very possible that this was edited. And maybe he looked at the painting and the daguerreotype. It's possible. My mind is open to that. I mean, I just think he really took he took a daguerreotype of the painting, and that's what they say in 1885. And then Dan Weggeland, this is debunked. I don't think he ever saw any daguerreotype. It's possible Carter did. It is possible Joseph Smith III used my picture as a way to look at something to edit the painting, but he even says the painting was done from life. He never says that it was based on the daguerreotype. So that was just really how William B. McCarl interpreted the 1910 letter, which I just really disagree with. It's just his own interpretation in 1962 when BYU was a really small school, but he had incredible resources. It's still such a good article that he did. I mean, it really was so well done. So if you just go back to here, this whole article, I'm not saying it's bad. It is a really, really good article. It's very long. His sources are really good, though. It's just his own interpretation. That's like the same thing with history. Historians aren't necessarily all liars, but it's their own interpretation, and then they choose what they pull from that book. So William B. McCarl picks and chooses what statements he takes from Junius F. Wells to support his theory. But when you read the whole article by Junius F. Wells, that's when you go, I don't think I agree with William B. McCarl. I don't think that William Major did that painting, and he knows that he couldn't have done it from life. But you have so many statements that forward-facing painting was done from life. But if you go through this, you can just easily go here and just find this. Look at his sources. So many old books are online. The whole book is just scanned. It's kind of like the Joseph Smith papers there. Especially anything from Utah. We're so into church history that we're going to scan all these old articles in newspapers, and so many of them are online. So, you just come up with your own theory. You may not agree with me. You might agree with William B. McCarl and think that, well, Majors did that and it wasn't done from life. And even though two people state that were knew Joseph Smith III and met him and met Emma, I mean, Joseph Smith III knew his own dad and mother. I think he would have had at least enough, even though he wasn't right all the time. I think he knew enough to state this was done from life. And Junius F. Wells said, Emma told me this was done from life, not from a daguerreotype. But 1843, 1910, it's a long time. That painting's going to start to not look so hot being off of the Mississippi River and how humid it is. And apparently my picture looks like it definitely was kept in a really humid place. So yeah. Yeah, I do think that this possibly was the daguerreotype that Joseph Smith III had. This is how it would have looked in a flipped orientation, but oxidized, and he used it to edit the painting. Maybe Carter saw that, but I think he was just doing the painting. And then Junius F. Wells states blatantly that Dan Weggeland did a drawing by looking at the daguerreotype of the painting. He didn't go stand there and look at the oil painting. Joseph Smith III wasn't going to let anyone do that. But he would hand them, here, you can draw that, sure, give me such and such amount of money. Here's a daguerreotype, here's a carte de visite of that painting, and then you can reproduce it. And we know that a lot of Utahns even have just actual photographs of the painting, and then they have the Carter image, the Library of Congress photo. All of those are edited versions of photos of the painting. And again, I think because his original daguerreotype was real, it did exist, it did happen. I think Lucian Foster in 1844 could have taken it. Anyway, have a good day.